Hello, YouTubers out there. I am coming to you today to discuss a couple of topics. First of all, I realize that if you're watching this video, chances are you either are an ex-Jehovah's Witness or you are hopefully soon to become an ex-Jehovah's Witness, but you have serious questions about this organization and you want to find out the truth about the truth. Hopefully this is the beginning of your journey to discover the truth about the truth. And I want to draw your attention to a couple of interesting things here. Specifically, I want to talk to you about the Watchtower organization, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society organization, connection to the United Nations. Now, we all know that for many years, the Watchtower has called the United Nations all kinds of things. It's labeled them as the wild beast, and you're probably more familiar with the terminology than I am at this point because I don't try to remember it. They call it a disgusting thing. And yet we have this handy dandy little factual letter here. And I'm gonna just zoom in on it for a moment. Okay. Now this is from the Department of Public Information, non-government organizations, so NGO, non-government organizations section. And I'm just going to read it to you real quick, although I encourage you to look at it for yourself. And it says, to whom it may concern, recently the NGO section has been receiving numerous inquiries regarding the association of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York with the Department of Public Information, and this is part of the United Nations. This organization applied for association with the DPI in 1991 and was granted association in 1992. By accepting association with the DPI, the organization agreed to meet criteria for association, including support, and respect of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations, and commitment and means to conduct effective information programs with its constituents and to a broader audience about UN activities. In October 2001, the main representative of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York to the United Nations, Giro Ausolino, requested termination of its association with the DPI. Following this request, the DPI made a decision to disassociate the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of New York as of 9 October 2001. So this is hilarious to me that the Watchtower was actually themselves disassociated, from the United Nations. Please be informed that it is the policy of the Department of Public Information of the United Nations to keep correspondence between the United Nations and NGOs, non-government organizations, associated with DPI confidential. However, please see the below paragraph included in all letters sent to NGOs approved for association in 1992. Quote, the principal purpose of association of non-governmental organizations with the United Nations Department of Public Information is the redissemination of information in order to increase public understanding of the principles, activities, and achievements of the United Nations and its agencies. Consequently, it is important that you should keep us informed about your organization's information program as it relates to the United Nations, including sending us issues of your relevant publications. We are enclosing a brochure on the United Nations and non-governmental organizations, which will give you some information regarding the NGO relationship. Now, the letter does continue. If you want to read the rest of it, you're welcome to Google the DPI NGO United Nations Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Now, this was discovered by a couple of people. And I have here copies of the original emails from a man named Paul Gillies. It says the following is a record of the published email correspondence between Stephen Bates, religion writer for The Guardian, United Kingdom, and Paul Gillies, spokesperson for the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Great Britain. And this email exchange was published in The Guardian. I encourage everyone, I'm not going to read those because they are several pages. Encourage everyone to read this information in black and white for yourself. Don't take an explanation from the elders or from a member of the society or from a member of the governing body or a Bethelite or a pioneer or anybody that's rank and file of Jehovah's Witnesses. Read it in black and white for yourself. So by all means, establish these things for yourself as being factual. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society was affiliated as an NGO, a non-government organization, and had to apply every year. They had to reapply to confirm their status with the United Nations. They had to confirm their affiliation, and they had to agree to send certain publications, and they had to meet a criteria of a certain number of articles they had to print disseminating information about the United Nations. I highly doubt that they sent them a copy of the Revelation, its grand climax at hand excerpts describing the United Nations as the wild beast, and describing Babylon the Great, and describing it as the disgusting thing. So when I had heard about this for years and years and years, and I just quite frankly didn't look into it. But now seeing it in black and white, it really has had an impact on me. Now, I want to say that each individual person that's looking at these YouTube videos of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, I understand you're taking a big risk if you're still a member of the organization. And if you're not, whatever has led you to this video, I firmly believe everything happens for a reason. Recently, I have come across YouTube videos from an ex-Bethelite by the name of Marcus Vaughn. And I wanted to shout out to Marcus Vaughn and say thank you so very, very much for your videos. And when I watched a video of his recently, I've watched a whole bunch of his videos, describing from day one how he was just escorted out of Bethel. Members of the moving department just showed up at his room, packed his stuff up into his car, and basically said, sayonara. He was even charged for the food that he ate that day. Most people have a very, very limited understanding, as I did, of what it's like to be a Bethelite. We view these young men, and in some cases young women, as being the most model citizen Jehovah's Witnesses that there are. And so it's very, very credible when you hear someone that has been at Bethel, that has been a faithful Jehovah's Witness their whole life, that's probably not been in any trouble, because you have to be exemplary to serve at Bethel. And for him to describe just being exited from the Bethel facilities, not as a result of any kind of misconduct, but just, well, we're making cutbacks and you've got to go. No concern for the fact that he worked there for 4 years, had no savings, had no money, had no place to go. He essentially was homeless that day. And they didn't neglect to send him later a bill for the food that he ate that day. Does that sound like the society, the organization that you thought you were a member of? No, it doesn't. But it is the truth. And the truth is hard to swallow. It's hard to accept, hard to believe. Well, in his videos, he also went on to describe some of his experiences at Bethel. And one of the most bizarre that I found was he went to a meeting and he observed a young man that was not paying attention to the Watchtower study. So he went over to encourage the young man to really pay attention. He noticed this young man was drawing, a young 20-something-year-old man was drawing in a notebook. Subsequently, he got invited to this young man's home, and the young man revealed to him that there are actually sub-cults within the organization. And he was a member of one of these sub-cults. He was what they call a channeler. Now, I could tell by the way that Marcus was relaying this information that he was completely blown away. And he was like, man, how do I get out of here? But he listened to the man. He listened to the young man, listened to what he had to say. And when I'm watching this video, I'm blown away. So I start looking into Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, Jehovah's Witnesses' relation to the occult. Because as you know, any affiliation with Jehovah's Witnesses, they firmly, just like they firmly denounce the United Nations as being basically an arm of Satan, an arm of Satan's world, they also denounce any affiliation with the occult as being demonic and something to be strongly avoided. So I came across this website called the 7 Screens of the Watchtower, and watched one of the 3-hour-long videos, which was just a video recording, audio recording, of a young woman called Raven Giuliani. Now, this is one of the most controversial interviews that you will ever hear about Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's extremely, extremely difficult to accept. I sat there and I listened to the entire 3-hour program of this young woman describe her experiences as a child being taken to the tunnels, which are known to exist. Secular sources confirm that the tunnels exist. It's even in the Watchtower Society publications that the tunnels exist, and they connect those Bethel buildings. She was taken to the tunnels as a child and was made to participate in by her father, ceremonies where she was used as a channeler. She was used as a channeler to contact the spirit world, a spirit, what was assigned to her as her spirit, and do automatic writing. Specifically, her writings that this demon told her about were the writings of Daniel chapters 11 and 12. Now, I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail because all of this was extremely shocking. Even despite all of my research, even despite everything, extremely shocking to me. But suffice it to say, I continued to watch Lloyd Evans, John Cedars' channel on YouTube, and he was discussing this was in 2016, I believe, all of the discontinued publications of Jehovah's Witnesses, and amongst them was the Daniel book, the Daniel's prophecy, in addition to the Revelation, its grand climax at hand, and a lot of the prophecy books. So I'm going to read, if I can reach this. If I can reach this, I dropped it. I apologize. In my car. So, let's see if I can find this list here because I wrote everything down. List of discontinued publications. Okay, just bear with me. Apologize for the poor camera work. I'm in my car here. Discontinued literature. The Comprehensive Concordance. Bible topics for discussion. God's Word for Us through Jeremiah from 2010. Isaiah's Prophecy, Light for All Mankind, published in 2000, volumes 1 and 2. Life, How Did It Get Here, by Evolution or by Creation. If you've been in the truth any time at all, you will remember this as being the publication that had all kinds of scientific information, which we used to disprove the evolution theory, particularly to scholarly or academic people, especially when we were in school. It was a little blue book. Live with Jehovah's Day in Mind from 2006, very recent. My Book of Bible Stories. My Book of Bible Stories. The little yellow gold book that we all grew up with. Discontinued. Reasoning from the Scriptures. Discontinued. Revelation, Its Grand Climax at Hand. Removed from the jw.org and from the CD collection of literature. The Emphatic Diaglott, which is the original Greek translated into English. The Kingdom Interlinear Translation of the Greek Scriptures. The Worship the Only True God book from 2002. And then a partially discontinued, which means that they're not publishing it anymore at this time, nor can you order it. All scripture inspired of God and beneficial. That was our dark blue book that we used to use at the Theocratic Ministry School, which also is no longer happening. Bearing thorough witness about God's kingdom from 2009. Come be my follower. Draw close to Jehovah, 2002. This was the book that I studied over and over and over and over again. How Can Blood Save Your Life? The brochure about blood transfusions. Insight on the Scriptures, Volume 1 and 2. Is There a Creator Who Cares About You? From 1998. Jehovah's Witnesses and Education, the brochure. Jehovah's Witnesses Proclaimers of God's Kingdom, the bleached historical book about Jehovah's Witnesses history. So now not only can you not Google Jehovah's Witnesses history, you also can't order the Proclaimers book. So if you're a new member, you will have no idea about the history, even the bleached history of the Watchtower Society. Pay attention to Daniel's prophecy, the one that this girl Raven Giuliani claims she was part of basically writing. See the Good Land brochure for 2003. The Bible, God's Word or Man's. The Divine Name That Will Endure Forever. And the Watchtower Publications Index from 1930 to 1985. And the reason I find the last one significant is because they're trying to sanitize and remove all trace of some of the older publications. Publications like the Kingdom Interlinear and the Insight and the Emphatic Diaglott and these other ones. She mentioned in her testimony several books. One of them was called Paradise Lost. My parents had an extensive Watchtower library going all the way back to, I would say, the 1930s. So I grew up with not only the complete Watchtower and Awake bound volumes. I had all of these publications and then some. It was funny because Lloyd Evans actually said that he didn't have copies of some of these and actually didn't know what some of them were, which was surprising to me because I consider him to be a studious expert on Jehovah's Witnesses. And I had all of these, read all of these. Watchtower magazines going back to the Golden Age. Book called The Paradise Lost. From Paradise Lost to Paradise Regained, it was kind of an orangey pink book. I think originally it was kind of a melon colored book, if you could say that. And I studied that before getting baptized. I thought the illustrations were really beautiful, even though they were in black and white. But so many of these publications being discontinued, that's the entire Watchtower library that I grew up with. All of the books that I studied, save for the Live Forever book, perhaps. And there was a book about Survivor. I can't remember the title of it. I believe it was a green book. Will You Survive or something like that. But almost all of the publications that I spent 25 years studying, spent Monday night after Monday night after Monday night, which was our book study night, studying, researching, commenting, taking Bible studies to the Kingdom Hall, studying this with them. All of this is being discontinued. Why? To me, in my mind, it lends credence to these people that are saying that they were used to channel the information, especially about prophecy. And I also think that they want to cover themselves in a legal way. I think that they want to make these publications disappear. They go out of print and they think and they hope that the new converts and the people that are towing the line currently in the organization are just going to say, oh, well, that's old light and we have new light. But my question is, what is the new light? The new light is going to be almost exclusively a bunch of videos and a few Watchtower publications. See, they're trying to protect themselves from a legal standpoint because they have printed hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of tracts, brochures, books, volumes. This literature that paints the United Nations in a bad light, that teaches things that are considered old light. It also exposes a little bit of the truth about the truth and a little bit of the truth about the history of the organization. Why are they getting rid of the insight books? Those were our go-to deep study publications. Why are they getting rid of the Proclaimers book? Even though it was a sanitized version of the history of the organization, see, they don't want people to know the truth about the truth. And when you start researching things like Judge Rutherford, and you look into it, he was actually a womanizer, a drunk. Didn't live with his wife, lived with his nurse, and she said under oath that they were living as man and wife. He was adulterating with this woman for years, traveling with her to conventions and blah, blah, blah. This is the history of this organization that you either were a part of or have been a part of, or someone that you know is a part of. A womanizer, an adulterer, and a drunk. In addition to being having affiliation with Freemasons and pyramidology and demonology, he claimed that he was the channel of God talking to God's chosen people. What is that if not a spirit, a cult? Something that Watchtower Society outwardly denounces as being evil, as being wicked, as being spiritistic. These 7 or so men in New York City that claim to be the governing body. In this young woman, Raven's testimony, she talks about the governing body members. I'll read you a few of the names. And if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you will recognize these names. Talks about them being present for these. Okay? She talks about Daniel Sidlick handing her notebooks to write in. Fred Franz, who she said was odd, creepy,